Alright, welcome to the first episode of Martial Science Fight Channel. My name is El Garza, and I'll be talking to you today about my family's history and legacy in the martial arts. I think it's important that anytime someone in martial arts speaks or talks about martial arts or fighting or self-defense or even in today MMA, mixed martial arts, I think it's important to know the credentials behind the person speaking, the experience in martial arts and in self-defense and in fighting in real life before they can actually speak to you directly about the separating fact from fiction within martial arts and MMA and so forth, and even self-defense. So it's important that I give you my family's history, my family's background in martial arts, starting with my mother. So my mother was a black belt in Kempo Karate. Her name was Silvana Salmoni. She was Italian. Her father came from Palermo, Sicily. She had her black belt in training in Kempo. Who was the first women's lightweight champion in her time. She was just 16 years old, weighed about just under 100 pounds, 4'11", and she became the first lightweight women's champion. She was a number of newspapers locally in her area in LA, and a lot of different newspapers came out to talk to her and interview her about her tremendous win as a high school fighting adults in the women's championship division, lightweight. My father also, who's been doing martial arts pretty much all his life since he was a teenager, ended up learning, going into kung fu, learning boxing from his father, but ultimately getting his black belt in Lima Lama, which is an American Polynesian system founded by Tino Tuolasega, which you can actually look up in Google. I myself have spent my whole life since I was about 6 years old in the martial arts with my family, training, learning the art, becoming a 6th degree black belt in Lima Lama, competing around the world, teaching self-defense as a defensive tactics instructor for law enforcement, federal and government agencies, as well as competing in MMA, mixed martial arts, in the cage. I've won numerous titles and championships, so I can say that I have true experience in self-defense as well as in martial arts and MMA. My father as well has been cataloged in numerous martial art magazines inside Kung Fu, as well as my mother again in numerous local newspapers. So we have a rich history of martial arts and fighting, and I think that's important when we talk about martial arts and self-defense, because without the background and the true culture of fighting in the person speaking, I think that anybody can pretend or talk about self-defense and really have no clue what they're talking about. So this channel is going to be dedicated to you, to separating fact from fiction in martial arts. We'll talk about, again, my family's history, going into, again, my dad having the first local cable TV show of martial arts called World of Martial Arts and Body Motions, where he had people like Ed Parker, Jimmy H. Wu, and many others on there in interviewing and demonstrating, which you can find online at Amazon, and my dad's book about the history, his memoirs of a martial artist, with him growing up in the era of Bruce Lee, and how Bruce Lee knew Tino Tuolasega, and the witnessing of his wife, Tino Tuolasega's wife, talking about Bruce Lee coming over to train with Tino, and of course Ed Parker and Tino's relationship in the world of martial arts, and of course my growing up in it, what I saw, what I experienced, and even on my own competing, fighting, and taking it to the real world, so that I can share my experience with you. Again, this is really separating fact from fiction, and of course having fun talking about martial arts, how it's evolved and gone from self-defense martial arts to now what we see as a sport in the MMA world, UFC, and so forth. So I think it's going to be an exciting time talking about all these things on this channel. But this is episode 1. Again, my history of martial arts is extensive. You can actually Google me, look me up on my YouTube channels, and see my competitions and my fights. I've done this for a very long time. I taught it for a long time, even again under defensive tactics for law enforcement and so forth. I have my 6th degree black belt in Lima Lama, and as well as a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under Pedro Carvalho, who I spent almost 20 years with. and that was something that I could never, never regret doing, is looking at the martial arts the way I did with my father, and then going outside of that. And I think that's important. I believe a true martial artist is never bound by one system, and I think that a martial artist can dedicate himself to a specific style, but yet go outside of that style to learn the basics and fundamentals of other arts, just so he can bring it into his own martial arts in the end and make it his own. And I think that's important. We can get black belts in many styles: karate, kung fu, taekwondo, judo, jiu-jitsu, whatever art you want to be in. But I think it's important to understand that it's what you do with the art, it's what you make with the art. You make it your own, and it becomes your own. It becomes a science to you. So martial science to me is taking self-defense and the martial arts and breaking it down to its components of why and how it works, and what doesn't work, what can never work in a real fight, and what we know from experience of what works and what doesn't work. There are many people out there who claim to be martial artists, and you can tell just by their teaching methods or their lack of experience that they do not know, or they have no clue about self-defense, martial arts, and anything. A lot of phonies and fakes out there who pretend to be martial artists with limited training, no real instructor underneath them that they've came under, no degrees, no black belts, nothing. So those, again, separating those phonies, facts, the fact from fiction, and looking at what really is martial arts, what really is self-defense, what really does work and what doesn't work. I've been in many numerous fights. I've fought underground, I fought in the cage, I've fought in competition, and I've tested myself in many situations. So I'm very familiar with what works for me and what doesn't work for me in martial arts. And I think another key thing is learning what works for you and what doesn't work for you in your particular style. Because we can learn karate and kung fu and all these different martial arts. In my case, Lima Lama, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, as well as I've trained in American kickboxing, in Muay Thai. I've competed in boxing at a young age. So I know the fundamentals of these other styles and fighting systems, as well as competing in them. But my focus has always been in growing in a particular art like Lima Lama, as well as in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But again, it's what works for you, and we're going to be talking about this channel. We're going to talk about in this channel what is martial arts, what is martial science, what really does work out there, and how do we know it works. And if you're new to martial arts, I think you'll get a lot of great information from this channel. I love teaching, I love explaining. Again, my family history supports my background, my experience of over 40 years in martial arts, as well as actually competing and fighting. I've done a lot of stunt work for different independent movies. I've pretty much done it all. I didn't strive to become a martial arts star or celebrity, not at all. I wanted to test myself in martial arts and in self-defense and even in the cage, and that's it. I never planned or tried to become a big name in martial arts, even though my family is well known in the old school martial arts communities from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and even in the 90s, with many different of the veterans of martial arts in the old school. So that's what we're going to do with this channel. We're going to kind of break down a lot of different martial arts systems, and I hope you enjoy it. But listen, I want you to please subscribe and like this channel. I want to grow this channel to have some fun with it, so we can actually interact and maybe take it outside of here. Once you start growing this channel, I want to start talking to people about martial arts. We're going to see what works and what doesn't work. We're going to talk to real martial artists, and we're going to show you why certain systems, how we break down the systems in martial science, and how you take from certain martial arts systems and make it so it does work. Because again, I would say 95% of the time in the street, you're facing people who have no fight training, no real experience. So almost any martial arts will protect you, but then we have to know what part of that martial arts we need to make work in real life self-defense, even with weapons and so forth. I've been around it all. So I hope you tune into this channel for the future. This is just an introduction, episode 1, to kind of let you know what we're going to be doing. So please, again, subscribe to this channel, like it, share it, and let's have some fun in this martial science fight channel episode. Episode 2 will be coming soon. So again, I want to thank you for tuning in. And again, my name is Al Garza, and you have a great day.